As a child, after hearing Happy Birthday sung to a couple of people like Emily and Andre, if somebody then said, let's sing Happy Birthday to Maria, you could probably do it without having the whole song repeated to you. You have the human power of abstraction. You can see a couple of examples and see what the general situation is, and you could probably figure out how to sing to Maria too. Python's not so smart. It needs explicit rules. If you were to give an explicit instructions to some person, you might say something like, first you have to be given a person's name, then you sing the song with the person's name inserted at the end of the third line of the song. Python basically needs instructions like that, but they've got to be in Python syntax. Let me go to the example function that I've already introduced. This is birthday 6, and this would be Python's way of giving very specifically the instructions how to sing to more than one person. Since who you sing to, when you just say the person, and it could be substituted with various names, that's pretty much like a Python variable. We need something that's a legal Python variable, so I'm using person. And here you see the definition of a function with a parameter. The idea is that person here stands, as in the instructions we were giving, for whatever person you actually want to sing happy birthday to. And so then we've got the various canned parts here in the first line and the second and the fourth line. But then, of course, in this one place where you need the particular person's name, I put in the variable name that I've given there, person. This combines the strings and plugs the person's name in the right place. The beauty of this system is that this one definition now works for singing to Emily or Andre or Maria or anybody. This version actually does the same as the earlier version that sung to both Emily and Andre. Let's just test it first quick. So it's saying happy birthday to Emily, and then it's saying happy birthday to Andre, just like we've seen before. So let's look at this. Now I'm going to go through pretty much the same explanation I did before, but there's this extra piece now of the parameters. This parameter here is called more precisely the formal parameter. It's the one that is a placeholder for the real person's name that you're going to use. And this formal parameter is used throughout the definition of the function. Then we have a place where you're actually calling the function. In this place, we have to give an actual value for the person's name. And so we have string Emily. When this program runs, again, we first go through and remember the definition. Then we get to this first line to execute. And again, it calls the happy birthday function. But note it has this parameter Emily, so that when we go and call the function, we see here that there is a parameter, the formal parameter, and Emily substitutes for this, or it's like person equals Emily is the first line of the function. It goes on and does these lines, and in this case it plugs in the value for person. In this case it would be Emily. And we get essentially happy birthday to Emily. And then the same overall flow of control as before. When we get to the end here, this is no longer indented, so we come back to where we were called from. Then we go on to the next line, another call to happy birthday, this time with parameter Andre. So when we go back to the function, we see that person now is referring to Andre. And we go through the 4 lines again, but this time it is Andre that's substituted for person. Now I've loaded in another example program, birthday 7, another slight variation. This just shows that with the parameterized version, again, we can put the main action in a main function and then just have one line that executes directly the call to main. I've loaded in one more version, birthday who, To be more flexible, we can really take advantage now of this availability of parameters to take input from the user and then be able to sing happy birthday to anybody. So I've just copied the definition here of happy birthday, but now in my main program I have an input statement asking for the name of the person you're going to sing happy birthday, called username, and then we have the call for that particular string. So now this program behaves differently depending on what you put into it. We can run it real quickly. So we can sing happy birthday to Maria. And there we have dear Maria. Let's look a little bit more at this program. It illustrates several ways to deal with input, and this can confuse people. On the one hand, here in the main function, we have input, of course, directly from the user's keyboard. That's certainly one way to get data into a program. But in the function here, we get data in a different way. We pass in a new value for the formal parameter. This is actually the way that data usually comes in to functions. And this program further illustrates something, that we separate those two ways of getting input. Main basically is just there to get input from the keyboard, and then we use this function that can just takes input from a parameter. Another thing about parameters and variable names. Person here is the formal parameter in the definition of this happy birthday function. The formal parameter is always a variable name because it replaces the actual data. For the first time here, where we actually call happy birthday, we have a variable name also. In the past, we always had a literal piece of data, a literal string, Emily or Maria, or Andre. All that is actually passed is the value of this as an expression. So if the input statement has made username correspond to Maria or something, then the variable name here isn't relevant, it's just the value. In particular, that means that when I do have a variable name here, there's no need for it to correspond and be the same as the name used for the formal parameter. All we care about is the value of this, then that value is associated with this formal parameter. It's just a coincidence or whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter that username was the name here.